I just want to say thanks to everybody who supported the channel. We've reached 1,000 subscribers, and as cliche as this might sound, I never expected this day to come so quickly. So thanks again, guys.
All right!
Alright, so we voted and the people have spoken. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to improve on a 2.0 Vegito. Vegito. Good old Vegito. What can I say about the fusion of our two favorite... Hey, I mean, I was as psyched as the next guy when they announced this figure was coming out, and I was even more psyched to pick him up. But just like many other characters in the anime, they have evolved. Yeah, ignore that. Let's be real. The reason most of us would like a 2.0 Vegito is for Vegito Blue, right? Now, as cool as that would be, I think it's really important to keep in mind that with a character like Vegito, this figure should ideally be usable for Blue art displays as well as Goku Black art displays. Now, having said that, really it comes down to which of these three forms they're going to be including. Because when it comes down to it, I don't think any of us are wanting to fork over some extra cash just to get an extra head sculpt if they do eventually release a 2.0 Vegito. Personally, if we had to choose between two out of the three forms, I would say go with Blue and base form, and my reason for this is simple. Super Vegito does not seem to be in as much of demand anymore, and two, no matter what display you're putting up, even if it's a Boo arc, chances are there's enough blonde characters already. So that's why I think we should go Blue and base form. Now, having said that, let's start with deconstructing what we would improve on the base form. Now, I think one of the first changes that should be made with regard to Vegito's base form here is we should see some of that super style artwork reflected here. I think the reddish brown tinge in the black hair looks super. And to me, I think that definitely reflects some of Vegeta's characteristics in Vegito, rather than him resembling Goku too much. Continuing on what can be improved from the top down in the base figure, I think the belt also needs to be a little bit of a lighter shade than the rest of the gi. If you look at the artwork, you can kind of see that reflected there. Now, speaking of the gi, I think it's important this time around that the shade of this blue matches the upcoming Majin Vegeta figure, because if it doesn't, that's not going to look too nice, especially if you have a Boo arc display going on. Now, a couple other things I want to mention here. First off, I hope that we get a neutral looking face, and I say this for a lot of Figuarts characters, but I do think a neutral looking power-up face is kind of a necessity at this point. I'm not sure why Tamashi's always decided at first to kind of have this crooked look going on. Yes, maybe it adds some accent, but it doesn't work for every situation. Next, I wanted to draw some attention to the Pataras. Now, they did get the coloring right. Vegeta's Patara are silver capped. Now, Goku Black's are actually golden and green. And I'm hoping they keep this attention to detail and don't just simply reuse Goku Black's Pataras for Vegito's in terms of the color, because we gon' know. Now, another thing I'd like to touch on here briefly is the thickness or the depth of the upper body of his torso. From this angle, it looks pretty good. Now, when you compare him to SS3 Goku here, I know SS3 is supposed to have more muscle mass, which is humor me. I think there's something missing with Vegito's upper body that just makes him lack that thickness, that intimidation appearance. So maybe it's not specifically the upper back, but definitely something with the sculpt of his upper torso needs to be modified. I think we kind of need it just to add a little bit more dimension to this. I mean, you can kind of accomplish that if you push his whole neck back, but that just looks weird. Of course, the knees need to be fixed, and I'm confident that that will be the case with the 2.0 sculpt. And lastly, another thing I think the 2.0 sculpt will fix is the contrast between the flesh and glove color. As you can see here, they did something to fix those gloves on Vegeta, and I think that'll translate well onto Vegeto. Alright, so for accessories with the 2.0 release, I don't know if re-releasing a Spirit Sword would be the right way to go, just because I think the final Kamehameha is so much cooler. But to produce an effect like that at the right capacity to capture the epicness of it would probably raise the price of the figure itself. So I think we're most likely going to get a reissue or a redo of this Spirit Sword effect. And with good reason. I mean, it could stand to improve some. I mean, I get what they were trying to do with all these linear lines running back and forth from top to bottom, but to me, it kind of just looks like really rotten celery from afar. I think this guy had a great idea right here. Tamashi should actually license, separate effect parts, because people are spending money on third-party effects and they're losing out on it. Perhaps they can make it light up, perhaps they can make it different shades in different areas, instead of just giving us the same generic effect parts. Now with regard to the hands, it's kind of a weird one as to what other hands they should include with Vegito, because you don't really see him do too many different things with his hand other than beat the crap out of people and use final Kamehameha and the Spirit Sword, as well as cross his arms. Speaking of the crossed arms, I think they look a little bit dated when compared to Super Vegeta and the sculpt of the 2.0, so I would like to see them kind of retouched and retooled. Now regarding Super Vegeto's hair, if they do decide to go with a regular Super Saiyan hair release instead of blue or beige, I definitely think it needs some shading in there. I mean, like, from far away, it just looks like stale cheese from a cracker snack. But I mean, the sculpt is there, and if you take a look at it, it's very similar to Super Saiyan Blue Goku's head that we have now. Which brings me to my next point. The shading and textures of the hair between Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta and Goku that we have are very inconsistent. So if they do Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, they need to pick a shade of blue and a texture that reflects that of the anime and stick with it. So what did they do right? Well, they stayed very true to the source material. They got the colors right. I think the inclusion of the Spirit Sword accessory scored a lot of points. And I think a lot of people would have been upset had they not included the base form head and the Super Saiyan head. And of course, the inclusion of cross arms. Alright, so why'd you do it? I just have one quick obvious question, and it's, why did you choose to release Vegito so early? And I think a big part of that answer is just because they got to reuse the same old 1.0 Goku mold. I mean, come on, you showed us Super Buu and then you gave us Ultimate Gohan. And aside from that, we have no other characters to go with this guy, with the exception of Super Saiyan 3 Goku now, and the exceptionally expensive, hard to find, horrible looking one from way back when. Well guys, that about wraps up this episode of How to Fix Our Figuarts. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I always look forward to reading your comments down below. And don't forget to vote for who we cover in the next episode. On top of that, I'm planning to bring some new series to the channel, including some theory videos too. For instance, has anyone actually realized that Frieza's probably almost old enough to be Goku's grandpa? Anyways guys, thanks again for watching. As always, I hope the best of your todays, the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.
Forward.